Hi there, I'm Mikura Rindadua. Malaria was very common in boarding schools where I attended high school. When I got to the hospital, my vitals were fine, but I was obviously weaker than when I had first arrived. When pharmaceutical medications failed to improve my illness, doctors advised traditional home remedies. I went insane 3 days after being allowed to return home. I had an all-out screaming fit that night and day. The car we were in broke down because of some technical issues when my parents were driving me back to the hospital. I was led to a small clinic instead. I would usually just talk endlessly about whatever was on my mind. I fell asleep when they injected sedatives into my veins. I went to sleep, and I never woke up again. I was seeing a beautiful light in my dream. I was able to quench my extreme thirst when I saw a big tree with a water bottle hanging from it. I witnessed a hand remove the bottle from the tree. "Drink," said a voice to me. It slipped into my mouth like a vaccine drop, reviving me from head to toe. I only needed a tiny bit, therefore I didn't use the entire bottle. That moment revealed to me a number of things that were immediately apparent. People from all around the world were ascending up a ladder that extended from the earth to the sky. Standing in front of the closed heavens gate was an isolated me. Then a man escorted me down the hall and asked, "Are you coming into heaven?" He unlocked it for me after I answered yes, and I was led inside paradise. It was unclear to me whether I had passed the others or if they had gone ahead of me. I agree with this viewpoint. The man who opened the gate held so many keys in his fingers that they reached all the way to the back of his hand. He led the way to the exact room I wanted to enter. As I had imagined, Jesus Christ entered the room. I went into his office and was shown to a seat by his side. There was a small table between us. I will start by saying, he started reading from a folder containing many records, from the time of my worldly activity to my ascension to heaven. "Do you agree that you did this while on earth?" he questioned, closing the file. As for me, I had no problem with it. While I read it, I had the impression that I was a character in a movie or carrying out the action. It was simply too good to ignore. "I want to go back to earth," he told me. "I have a task for you to complete. When you're done, this will be your forever home in heaven." I thought about it for a moment and decided to stay put. He responded, saying, "No, just go back." This time I was clear in saying that I wanted to stay. Before I left heaven, he humbly begged me to return to earth. He gave me the one thing that I really wanted. I pleaded to be allowed to go to heaven, take in its splendor, and then descend back to earth. As soon as I entered paradise, I heard the chorus of angels singing. No matter how tall someone was, they blended in. Even in the absence of drums or other percussion, their excitement was evident. Marching forward to join the choir, I felt compelled to do so. However, there was a powerful but unseen force that prevented me from joining. I couldn't help but cry and stop singing along with the angels at that exact time. No one at the hospital knew why I was crying, even though my loved ones could see that I was. After that, I decided I wanted to know more about the afterlife. There was a lovely spot with a large chair on the opposite side of the choir, and someone was seated there. My voice was never good enough to be in the chorus, thus I would never amount to anything. As I strolled through that stunning paradise garden, Jesus spoke with me and extended an invitation to return. He brought me back to the gate via heaven, passing his office en route, once I gave him permission. The same man who'd let me in earlier was ultimately letting me out of heaven. This time he asked me nothing. He shut the gate behind me as I went outside, and I began descending the ladder. I made a new friend who shared my interests with other climbers up there. I don't know exactly how I appeared, but I do remember being a powerful, energetic entity who didn't require anything to survive, not even clothing, food, or water. Fantastic, really. Only a few minutes before I was supposed to meet with them, the person passed suddenly. He had been in my room the entire time, according to what witnesses at the hospital later told me. I answered his question by telling him what had transpired in heaven. He would tell me to open my eyes and look at earth if I wanted to know what was going on there. He stated it was both repulsive and perplexing. I felt it would be too sacrilegious to leave the heavens. Throughout our conversation, I assured him that he could find welcome in heaven. When he asked me why I was going there, I told him that I would take care of it when I returned to earth. I bid him farewell with a kiss and lowered myself on the floor. When I reached the vicinity of the sick, I looked at my body. I returned around 8 in the evening, 7 hours after the doctor had declared me dead. I stared at my body, thinking it was worthless and not worth my effort, and I swore at it. I felt like it would be pointless to enter the corpse, even though I knew I had to. All I could do was get into the body. I can't quite remember how I inserted my hand, but it seemed like putting it in a pocket. When my body and mind began to work together once more, the doctor's words resonated. I had passed away. Word has spread around the neighborhood about my passing from all sides. They were looking for a place to bury their firstborn since a father had tragically lost his firstborn. After I regained my bodily form, I moved a little. My aunt had come to the clinic to weep with me over my body, and I embraced her as I stretched out to her. She informed me that everything was good. Concerned medical professionals and social workers poured into the room. When the doctor checked my vitals several times during the examination, I was surprised. He said he was sorry after telling me earlier that I had died. My body was translucent, and I could see my skeleton through it since I was so malnourished at the time. I was in such a terrible position that I didn't even realize it had been 15 days. I fell into a food frenzy and found myself staying longer. I was reduced to a skeleton, and they had to help me in and out. During that time, I also experienced visions of other things, such as the execution of innocent individuals for their offenses. Just as the executioners were about to decapitate me, an anonymous attacker saw me and called them, sparing my life. Numerous people lost their lives. When I was well enough to sit with those around me, I gave great importance to those who had died for their crimes. There was a lot of blood all over the place. My kidnappers claimed that if I talked, I would destabilize their otherwise tranquil nation. They still didn't believe me, so I had to tell them that their actions are judged in heaven, and that this life is nothing compared to what lies ahead of us when we pass away. I was still unable to get over this peculiar fear even after all these years. I asked the Lord for guidance, seeking His will. At this point, I should keep in mind that I was given clear instructions to finish a task on earth before going back to my eternal residence in heaven. I continue to preach the gospel and spread the good news of the hereafter because the Lord called me to do so late at night. The story that follows is about a woman who falls down a cliff and meets Jesus.